Wellness Warriors. The other day, a few weeks ago, I noticed that there was some data saying that keto helps with mental health. Our guest is talking about how keto and eating properly help with their mental health. I'm so excited for this conversation. You can't even imagine. So I'm not going to take too long introducing Mike. Do you want to tell us your story?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Violet, for having me on. I love your channel. Found it recently, which surprises me because they should have been recommending this to me a long time ago. But I've just been devouring all the videos. I love your advice, so thank you for having me on. But I have bipolar type 2, and I struggled pretty badly before I found this lifestyle. And I found it online, watching videos of other patients and how they healed, not through the traditional system at all. The traditional system was pretty bad for me. It's been a year. December 17th, 2022 was the first day I started officially. And with a serious mental illness like bipolar, you don't want to just jump into keto by yourself. It took me 6 months to find a psychiatrist that was willing to follow me through. I had to beg him for months and months and months, and he's amazing, like one of the best doctors I've ever had. Dr. Matthew Bernstein, if anybody's interested, he's in Massachusetts, where we live, and it's been so amazing. I mean, where do you want to begin? How far back do you want to go?
How about we start with when were you diagnosed?
In 2022, in June. I had my first hospital stay, and that was the criteria that basically put the diagnosis over the top. 2007, though, was the first time I went to a psychiatrist and asked for a diagnosis for manic depression, which is what we called it then. And he said, no, you just have depression, blah, blah, blah. And that was the first round of, traditional medicines that just did not work for me. They didn't make me feel good at all. They made me literally within 3 months, I was actually much worse, and I would stop taking them. Then I'd feel better, and I'd think, oh, good, everything's resolved, and then the cycle would happen again and again and again for the next 15 whatever years, and the cycle would shorten and shorten and shorten, each time, and every time I went back, they said a different thing, and the worst part, though, was in 2020, I started to get serious about the depression and things that were happening, asked for the diagnosis again, and they put me on new, stronger medication, which actually started to hurt me worse and brought my cycles down, to yearly, which in 2021 and 2022 became quarterly and then monthly, and then by the time I had my diagnosis in June, I was cycling daily. And if anybody doesn't know what cycling means, I'd go from hypomanic, because type 2, I don't get the full psychosis, but I get where I stop sleeping and I start, doing fun projects and things for about a week or two, maybe 3, and if I'm lucky, but then I'd crash hard, and then that would last for months and months and months. And the medicines just, really did me in. But I had a lot of anger about that at the time, but I'm starting to understand that that's just how they have to treat you, and that's how you have to get your diagnosis. They literally trial by medicine, and when the medicines fail, then they say, oh, it looks like we're dealing with this. And, it's too bad that people have to do that. But that's what I went through. Some pretty dark and awful times, too, especially from 2021, 2022.
What's interesting is you said like part of what was happening is you're not sleeping.
Sure, hypomania. That's what that is for me and for people with type 2. It's the first sign that something's wrong. Plus, you're happy and you're doing some kind of a creative project, and you just get hyper focused, and you just go and go and go, and you create like crazy. Some of it's good, some of it's not, depending on your state at the time, and I've learned since that it's largely, for me especially, a brain energy kind of a problem. So if I like to call it hot. If I was hot, I'd be on fire and creating some really cool stuff. Or learning a new programming language or learning a new instrument or whatever it is that I'm working on, But a lot of times it's not that at all. It's you're not being energized enough in your brain, and what you think you're doing is amazing and great, and then you listen to it back, a couple weeks later, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's horrible, and it's kind of funny.
So part of the problem is that you're hyper focused on whatever you're doing, but you have no way to gauge the quality of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely no grasp on what's real, and what's not. Absolutely, and the hypomania leads to the crash. So like you just going and going and going and not sleeping and having a great time, and then all of a sudden it just goes boom, and I feel it personally. I actually feel the switch.
And then the crash happens. And can you tell people a little bit what that's like?
Well, it's pretty deep depression, which unfortunately a lot of people can relate to. And for me, I have verbal garbage that comes out when I get depressed and start, like taking it out on everybody around me. Someone will suggest, why don't you go outside, which is good advice. Get some sun, actually would help you sleep better that night, but you don't want to hear it. So usually what would happen for me is I've gone through it so many times and I've upset so many people in the house so many times that I would start self-isolating. So I had, over the 3 years before the diagnosis, several times, like 8 months, 3 months, another 3 months, another 6 months. Tried to track it once and try to figure it out, where I would just isolate from the world in the dark by myself so I wouldn't upset anybody, including myself. And you feel hopeless. You don't know what's wrong with you. And I couldn't get the diagnosis, so I spent the whole time saying, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And doctors who you trust are saying, you don't have this, you have this, and you just gotta tough it out, or take this other med. That's really all they have to offer.
I self-isolate. And then, of course, I'm left with my thoughts, and all of my thoughts are pointing towards there's something wrong with me, but the doctors are not seeing what I'm seeing. So it makes it worse, obviously.
Because it adds to stress, and as you know, in your channel, you talk about this a lot. Stress actually makes everything worse. You just when you get that cortisol hit, your brain energy gets cut down, and who knows what the reason is, but it's just your body's focusing on the stress, not other things that you want to focus on, like not being depressed, for instance, or sleeping, at night instead of during the day. Because when you don't sleep all night for nights and nights and nights, then you end up sleeping during the middle of the day when you're supposed to be at work, And eventually it was almost impossible for me to work. Actually, no, more than almost,
You get the diagnosis because finally those switches are happening close enough together that they can see that that's what it is.
No, it's more than that. It's different than that. It's actually just that she had tried me through 2 different trials of certain medications that once you burn out on 2 and all the other ones I had told her about previously, she goes, oh, I guess we're dealing with bipolar. I'm like, oh, thank you very much for burning me out. Now, I've since found out that she had to do that. She literally had to put me through that trial. And the first one wasn't enough, and wrecking my life wasn't enough. She had to go through the 2 different medicines for me. And a lot of people like to know, what did you take? What did you take? Especially other patients. And I don't think that's right to talk about, which medicines were right for me and weren't right for me, because my biology is different than somebody else's. The way the illness expresses is for me. It's not for someone else. So a medicine that might actually be terrible for me might be great for somebody else. You know what I mean? And with bipolar, sometimes they do combination of medicine, like one to keep you from going up and one to help you from not being down, and they put them 2 together and they try to squeeze you in the middle where you're kind of like emotionless and not really thinking very well, but at least you're not going up, you're not going down. So one of those medicines, I could out it and say, this was terrible, don't take that, but that's not the right way to look at it at all. It just was bad for me.
Now that's another problem that I have heard about, where you're taking a medication or a combination of medications, and then emotionally you're not able. So tell me about that part. So you get on this medication. This is step 1 of you trying to solve this craziness that you've been living. So step 1 is I get on this medication. What happens?
We'll do medicine number 1 in 22. Started in January, and I got diagnosed with ADHD at the time, which was true. Literally the same clinician, she diagnosed me with ADHD, which she goes, oh, that's what you have. It's not this other stuff. You have stress in your life, blah, 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 so take this medicine. So I was hypomanic when I got to see her because I had been pushing to get the diagnosis for so long. I thought, this is it. So just that boost of happiness, like that I was actually seeing someone, put me in hypomania. So when she met me, I wasn't in the down state. So she never got to see that personally, that part of me. But within 3 weeks, I had crashed from the hypomania and, and the not sleeping and the new medicine. And I was probably already in the basement by myself, moving my bed from, in here with my wife, literally moving it downstairs like I'm going to be here for a while and I don't want to bother anybody. So I basically sat down there by myself playing, an instrument, trying to soothe myself to make myself feel better. And that's pretty much all I would do. And, do whatever minimum work I could do to get it, to get my job satisfied for that week or whatever it was, but really incapacitated completely. And you familiar with SIs, STs, like what that means? So, I like to use that instead of saying out the full word. One is, are you thinking about it? One is, are you planning on it? And the other ones, are you trying to do it? Okay, so there's the three. I had all flavors of those. But I had that even as a teenager. And I got through that then, sense that I knew no matter how bad it got, and that's happened in all the different cycles over the years, I knew that was artificial in a sense, that it was either caused by the illness or the medicine and the illness, the combination. And I knew no matter how bad it got, I wasn't going to give in to that, you know what I mean? So I never, fortunately, had to struggle with the oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But what I would do, how it manifests for me instead was, I figured this illness has done me in. And we can talk about what happened after the hospital stay, because things got much worse, believe it or not, even without the medicine. But I knew I was going to get through, but I wanted to get away from my family. I almost like pushed my whole family away, my wife away, my kids away, everything, because I was hurting them. And I could see it. They're watching me every day. And I thought there was no hope in sight, because when I would take the medicines, which we can talk about, more bad things would happen to me physically and mentally. And my mental state by last November just had degraded to the lowest part I could ever imagine. And it's just horrible. I'm not sure if I answered 100% what you're asking.
Well, so basically what's happening is that this is what life is looking like while you're on the medication that's theoretically supposed to be helping you.
Yes, and there's one other aspect I should mention, that for me, if you've ever heard what's called a mixed state, if anybody doesn't know what that is, you have the energy of a hypomania combined with the depression. And that's really when you're in a dangerous state. That's when people that have this illness act and do bad things. You know what I mean? Like to hurt themselves or others or whatever. It's really dangerous. So you're really angry and you have the energy and the depression to go with it, and you're not sleeping. And with me, like I said, I get the verbal garbage that's how it manifests for me. And it's awful. It would happen to me. Picture being hangry, like a lot of people can relate to that. You get all edgy and you need to eat. Picture having that for hours, but in a really, really intense state with the hypomania and the depression mixed in. You just, which is awful, And I'd say that was the key thing that probably let the clinician know that, indeed I was on the wrong medicine. And then they gave me the second one, which was worse than the first one. It was that the hypomania would just add to the depression in the mixed state and just make me a monster. And I've ruined, family events, and, my son's graduation was not what it should have been, and some really important parts of life that, you never get back, unfortunately. But that's how the system works, and that's how I had to get my diagnosis.
And then now you're on the right combination. So they figure out bipolar. So you're on the two medications, type 2. They figure it out. How do those medications help or hurt or what? Wellness Warrior, I have a favor to ask you. Sharing our stories is what will help new people to understand that keto actually works. So if you have improved your health, mental health, or weight through eating healthy keto, please look in the description. There's a form to fill out so that we can do an interview and you can share your story. I want to help more people. And I think that together we can help people to understand that keto is more than a diet. It's a way of life that gives you your life back. I'm not a special snowflake. I know that you also have lived amazing things. So let's change this together. The form is below. How do those medications help or hurt or what?
In the when you're in the hospital, what they're basically doing is trying to find something to stabilize you. That's the first thing. And I got lithium and benzodiazepine, and both of those worked. Benzodiazepine actually creates some GABA, which lowers your glutamate levels, which is what is making you hot. And it worked. So within a few days, I was still sick, and but I was calming down. And I think when they let me out, 4 or 5 days in, they said, you're the healthiest one here now. And I came in sick, like I was yelling at the staff, and I curse a lot when I'm in that state too. And the staff didn't like that. It was offensive to them, and the doctor literally had to ask them to just don't mind him. You know what I mean? I swear too, the doctor would say, trying to get the staff to understand. So I wrote, on paper, like all the things I was mad about. But anyway, by the time I was about to be discharged, they had told me that we were going to have a lithium check of my thyroid and my kidneys in a year. And they said, we'll do that every year, and then several years in, and eventually it'll probably start to affect your thyroid and your kidney. And, we'll deal with it, and we'll lower the medication, or we'll try a different one or thing. Or we have, this was the best one that I loved. We have medicine to treat your thyroid when we heard it with the, when the lithium is starting to hurt you. Well, that last day, they called me in and they said, well, your thyroid and your kidneys are already showing numbers, so we're going to schedule another blood test for a week from now and then another one from a month from now. And it's like, oh, gosh. But they said, you're all set. You'll never end up in the hospital again. Just keep taking lithium and you'll be fine, And if you don't sleep, take the benzodiazepines and you'll be great. That's the advice I got. Well, within a month, I started to go online and see the different things about the lifestyle, about how to help your mental illness with lifestyle. And it wasn't necessarily about ketogenic diet yet, but it was about alternative things to these medicines that really can hurt you. And I had known that I was already showing numbers of kidney problems, and thyroid numbers were going up like already. So I got concerned about that. So I was looking into it, and I found a different formulation for lithium that I thought might be better, like lithium citrate, because it goes through the brain barrier. It doesn't need to flood your whole body with the lithium carbonate, which is what that does, and that's why it hurts everything. So it took me the second hospital stay in August, because they put me on a different medicine, which was supposed to help with antipsychotics, and it didn't really work. So I ended up back in the hospital in August, and I got the blessing of taking the lithium carbonate from that doctor. And at the same time, I started to have eye trouble. Like, he gave me so much benzodiazepine the first time I was in the hospital. I had these migraines that actually made me vomit all night because it hurt so much from the headache. And it's because I took 7 times or 8 times as much as I had ever taken in the past. I had only taken it a night or two, half a milligram. He gave me like 7 or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it really affected me. And I've had all kinds of eye problems my whole life. And I have glaucoma in this eye already, and I don't see out of this side. I started to get pain in this one in the hospital during that headache. So the day I got out of the hospital, I scheduled an eye appointment for September. And I just jokingly told the doctor the second hospital stay, I said, hey, I'll keep taking the lithium as long as it doesn't affect my eyesight. Well, within a month, I was in the eye doctor appointment, and I saw that the people taking the test for glaucoma kind of got that look, where we got to go get the doctor, you know what I mean? But they're not saying anything. You're like, oh, crap. Doctor comes in, he does the test all over again, doesn't trust the staff that did it. And then he comes back and says, well, we have a problem. You have a really high eye pressure in your left eye, which is the only eye I see out of. And I have limited vision in it to begin with. So he scheduled me for an appointment. I said, well, do you think it's any of the medicines I'm taking? And they're like, well, we can't comment on that because that's a serious psychological, thing, and we can't comment on that. I said, well, you know what? My psychiatrist, or was a nurse practitioner, clinician at the time, she can't comment on my eyesight. And so you guys can't even talk, can you? And they're like, no, we can't. I was like, ugh. So I had to kind of take it on myself to either stop taking the medicine, which made me more sick. And by that time, I knew what the hospital was about. It was about cooling you up and sending you back home. I didn't need that anymore. You know what I mean? Once you realize what that's what it's for, and you kind of, the second hospital stay was more restful than the first one because I kind of knew why I was there, whereas the first one, it was for the diagnosis, and I didn't really grasp what was going on, why I was in the hospital, and even understand my illness. But by that time in September, I kind of understood, what was going on. And I told myself, I'm not going back in the hospital again. So I had found, the Walsh protocol, which talks about methylation and B12 and things like that. And I pretty much figured out that I'm undermethylated and that I need B12. So I started taking that. I stopped taking the lithium. I got the laser surgery. The pressure went down, fortunately. I had lost enough vision where I lost my license to drive, and I thought I was going to lose my job because of it. All the nurse practitioner could say was, I'll help you fill out disability paperwork. That was her solution to the whole thing. But when I started taking the lithium again after the eye operation that made the pressure come down, and wouldn't you know it, within 3 weeks, the pressure was back up. Stopped taking it again, had it measured again, and had to pay out of pocket because insurance doesn't pay for all of these, tests, frequent tests. You know what I mean? Even they're like, no, you can come back in 3 months and we'll test it then. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. So, you're not helping me with the medicine. I got to figure this out. So once I stopped taking it, came back down. So I'm like, okay, now I really need this doctor that I've been pushing to find because of the Walsh protocol that I found. I found my doctor through a referral list that said he specialized in, this Walsh protocol. But I had also found Bipolar Cast, which is from Matt Bazzucchi and Dr. Ian Campbell. And I started to learn about ketogenic diet. I tried it once on my own, and then all that stress happened with my eyes, and I just couldn't deal with everything at once. Went back to normal eating, sad eating, and waited for the doctor to take me. And within a couple of weeks after that, in November, he finally said, okay, I can take you now. I'm like, oh, thank gosh. And then about a month later, we did a bunch of prep. We did quitting junk food. We did, a bunch of, I started to narrow my eating window. So by the time I started, I switched into ketosis like in a couple of days with no symptoms, no nothing. I knew to take the electrolytes and, I'd take a pinch of salt and all that. And I had no keto fluid whatsoever. So that's a good tip for anybody. You can prepare the right way and you don't get that carb withdrawal while you're adapting to eating fat instead. So by December 17th, I started officially with his blessing. And within 2 weeks, by Christmas and time, like between Christmas and New Year's, I felt great. I mean, it was that quick. It was that dramatic. And I'd say by February, my brain started to clear up and I started to be able to think again. I still had balance issues, which is weird, but by April, by the time I had my interview on the Bipolar Cast, my brain was waking up and I was working again and it was great. And then every month since then, things have been clearing up a little bit more. And, I just did a lived experience talk at a metabolic psychiatry conference a month ago. Met all those people that I've been watching on YouTube for the last, 12, 18 months, which is amazing and wacky to meet the people you've been watching on your screen. Because I probably watched 40 hours of video, trying to figure this stuff out on my own. And I met all of them in person. It was amazing.
So when the psychiatrist was able to start working with you, and he was aware that that's what you're planning to do, keto, you're planning to do that.
100%.
When he started working with you, it sounds like you started to see results almost immediately. 2 weeks.
Symptoms were probably...
What was the first symptom that went away?
Anxiety was the last one to go.
Okay.
That took till probably June. And I had, from the little bit of benzos I had teeth chattering. from the benzos, the withdrawal from that. That ended in August. But
Okay.
the mental state and the being able to actually think again was within 2 weeks. That was probably the first thing. But you go hypomanic too. A lot of people do when they have bipolar and they do keto. And I had experienced that before because I had done paleo back in 2010 and felt amazing for like 3 weeks. I didn't know that was hypomania at the time, but I was like, this is the best I've ever felt in my life. I never need to sleep and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know that was actually part of the sickness, which unfortunately gets followed by the depression. But that happened too. So I was in a great mood for it. This was lasted about 4 or 5 months, the hypomania, I would say, this time. But I was sleeping. So it didn't come with the increased outbursts of emotion, that I would have gotten, all the emotional sensitivity that I would have had before. It didn't come with much of that. Only a couple of times when some stressful things in life happened, I'd blow up once in a while. And then, I get back on track with the diet and, just like have some extra fat, throw some extra MCT in the herbal tea. And it would straighten me right out by the next day or two. I had one mistake in April too, where I bought the wrong Gatorade, and I was working on my deck out back, painted the house, things that I hadn't been able to do in years, and there was a lot of stress at that time too. But I drank the wrong Gatorade, and I drank about 5 of them before I even decided to look at the bottle and go, "Why do these taste so good?" I'm like, oh my gosh, there's sugar. So I had a crash, lasted about 2 days. I just got real strict with the diet. Got back on track, and that had never happened before. Like, I have never had a bout of a mixed state kind of a activity that was so short and was so easy for me to blast back down, to get back into a regular state, emotional regulation, let's call it. But there's been every couple of months I'd have like an outburst like that. I have a stressful time or a bad night's sleep. I had a sinus infection that lasted a few months that this fall, and the medicines kind of raise your glucose, and that made me a little bit more sensitive. But since then, I haven't had anything. I feel normal again. Like I probably haven't since, I don't know, maybe forever, honestly.
So it feels normal again, which is like the cool part. Like, it feels normal again.
It's unbelievable. I don't feel like I have the illness anymore. I mean, I know I have to manage my sleep. I manage my whole week. I literally plan every day. I eat certain times, eat a certain way. I cook all my own food, and I get sunshine in the morning, like for at least 15, 20 minutes, no matter how cold it is outside. I go out there and I watch the sun. And I learned from Dr. Ignacio Quaranta from Argentina at the conference, you actually want to go out and get sun in your eyes when the sun's going down too. And that will help you make melatonin for that night. It's something I didn't know. So it's a nice tip that's, not a lot of people are aware of.
It counteracts all this artificial light that we have all the time.
And you got to keep the screens off, 3 hours before bed, or you're not going to make the melatonin. It's going to counteract that, and you're not going to sleep. And then, and you're either going to wake up in the middle of the night only after 2 hours sleep, or you're not going to get to sleep till 2 or 3 in the morning, and you don't want either of that. With this illness, that's the worst thing you can do is to miss sleep.
And so your sleep, it's back to normal?
No, but it's good. So I probably sleep 6 hours stretch, 5 or 6 hours at a stretch, and then I have a waking period, and then I might sleep 2 or 3 more hours after that, which is much better. So that's sustaining me, no problem. But it's not the sleep it should be. I should be doing the block of 7, with uninterrupted, and I don't quite get that yet, but I'm working on it,
That's amazing. I feel like the interesting thing to me is that in what sounds like 6 months-ish,
For the illness, 80% of the symptoms are gone in 2 months. 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks.
80% 2 weeks, and the last few happened.
Every month it would get better.
Every month I'm getting something else.
Best way to explain it. And keeping stress down was so important. Like, I literally have to say, I know this is bad, but I can't let it tank me. I can't. I have to actually ignore it. No matter what happens, I have to put that stress aside. And I've had to do that. And sometimes it's tough because it's something, maybe it's a relationship thing you're trying to work on, because there was a lot of, repairing to do, after all this. And, it would be impossible on traditional meds as far as I'm concerned. I would not have the energy because the traditional meds can make you not go up and down, but they can't put that energy back in your brain the way this does. They just don't.
Which means that when there is a problem, rather than trying to not look at it, you actually solve it.
That's right. Or at least you have the energy to try to solve it. It doesn't always work, but at least you can try. At least you can work on it.
See, that's the interesting thing, is that what people don't realize is that trying to solve it is still part of solving it. Like, it might take me 7 attempts to figure out why that bothers me. And I'll try this and I'll try that, but that's part of the process. So that's still me solving it. I'm in the process of solving it. As long as I realize that the solution is the end result, that, oh, I figured it out.
Yeah. Because everything you do that's positive, it makes you in a better state. Every little thing that you work on, it just helps just a little bit more. And as opposed to the other way, where everything that knocks you down and makes you feel a little hopeless or helpless actually goes the other way, and it kind of just sinks you down. So whatever you do to help is gonna help you next week. You just gotta keep pushing and keep doing it. And I would say too that the other interesting thing is that I could have done exercise first. I could have done stress reduction first. I could have done sleep first, right? Because sleep was always a thing that they always tell you. You have to get your sleep in order. And they're right. But I couldn't do that until I changed the diet, until I got rid of all of what the food was doing to me that I was eating. The inflammation that I had, the insulin resistance that I had, I lost 60 pounds in the last year, I feel amazing. I had arthritis all over me, and nose polyps. There is a huge list of things that I didn't even ask to get better that got better. Back pain. I don't know. I don't get winded anymore. I take long walks, which is one of the best things you can do for yourself, especially after you eat. I track. I do the blood ketone numbers and glucose and ketone numbers. So I know if I walk a flight of stairs like at the hotel a month ago, I ate a meal that technically was way over what I should have ate, but I said I'm going to do it because I can actually flex a little bit once in a while now, and I can eat, a little bit more carbs than not junk food or anything, but like just a little bit more than I could before. And if I walk it after, you don't even know the numbers. It doesn't even show the next day. So the step, I went up 12 floors of stairs after that meal, and I had the best numbers I had ever. So I'm fortunate, that I can do that.
One of the things that's hard for a lot of people, and what you're saying absolutely validates this, is what's hard for most of us is that we don't realize how much the food we eat impacts our ability to think clearly. And I feel like what you're talking about right now, like, is you wrote to me that you had like serious cognitive issues that got into remission with all of this change of food, and it happened almost immediately, like 2 weeks in. I'm thinking clearly again. How can I solve the problems that are happening with me if I'm not thinking clearly? And even when you saw it happening, as you mentioned, yelling at my family, yelling at my friends, like, not being agreeable at work, all things that could get every one of these things taken from you. And still I'm doing it because why? I'm not thinking clearly.
Yeah. And the other things can help, you can exercise the heck out of yourself and build up muscle, which is great. And you should do that. But you're not going to have the energy or the hope even. But once you feel that difference, and once I got to say the most surprising thing was my losing the grip food had on me to have to eat every couple of hours. It was the most amazing feeling that nobody told me was going to happen. Now they talk about it. Now I see like channels like yours, and you do talk about satiety and all that. But at the time, that was not a topic that was like pushed forward. But it's huge because once I started doing the intermittent fasting and food lost its grip on me, I didn't have the hangry anymore. I didn't have to eat at 10:30 after eating breakfast, then at 10:30, and then again at lunch. You know what I mean? And so food didn't have that emotional pull on me anymore. So I basically changed the hormones in my body to not force me to want to eat every 2 hours and food that I shouldn't be eating. and that was the most surprising thing that I wasn't expecting, and probably the most helpful thing too. So the emotional part about bad eating, where you're, like say a holiday that's coming up, I have to look at the foods that I would have like loved to have, at some holiday festivity or whatever. I don't have the hormonal pull to eat it, but I still have a little bit of the emotional, like, I wish I could eat that. Oh my gosh, eggnog is so cool. But you can find alternatives. I mean, I don't tend to do that replacement stuff because I think that leads to kind of pulling you towards the habit. Even if it's not a sugar, problem, it still kind of pulls you towards the habit. So I try to be careful of that. I try not to overly sweeten and replace things with other things. But that said, I do have a bread recipe that I found I like. I can make a pizza now out of the same egg white stuff, and I'm getting good at that stuff. And I had to be careful that I don't do it and replace all the other food that I should be eating, with the replacement stuff. But I can have my pizza now, and it's completely safe.
I think one of the things you just mentioned is the social piece, right? We were talking about holidays coming up. We're talking about all these things where normally we tend as a society to celebrate around food.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, and is this is the first Christmas you're doing this way, or is it the second?
Second.
Okay. So
Second.
I'm wondering, how do you navigate these events? What is your typical approach to, and maybe there's an element of also how do you manage what people say to you? Both of those.
Well, that's a big thing because I've had some friends that literally were mad at me because I lost too much weight. You need to gain weight. You lost too much weight. And they think that I'm going to have some kind of a mental issue with gaining fat. And I don't. I laugh it off. Like, if I eat a little bit less strict, like, I have a couple slices of regular pizza and I know it's going to, I'm going to get through it. I'm going to clear it. I'm going to go for a walk and it's going to be fine. But I see the weight come back and I don't call it love handles anymore. I call it leftovers. And I think that's a cool way to think about it. It's like the extra stuff you have for future, like you'll eat that when you need it. And then within a week it's gone, but family has been extremely supportive in me doing this. My own family here at home, they have not been as wanting to do the diet with me. My wife tried it for a little while, but for other reasons, it didn't stick. But the kids definitely didn't. They didn't want to hear it. It was more of a stressful thing, like, oh my God, Dad's not going to make us eat like this, is he? Things like that. So it was more of a negative. But with the larger family, when you go over to a family event and that, they just want to know what they can make for you. And I just say, don't worry about it. I'll eat what I can. And unlike before, if I don't eat as much or whatever, it doesn't affect me. I'll eat till I'm not hungry anymore. And it's easier. So this Thanksgiving, for instance, went over to my mom's. It was amazing. I didn't have to prepare or bring anything because there's plenty of food I can eat that's safe. You know what I mean? And it was just so easy. And honestly, it was the first holiday where it didn't matter. Like it was, nobody had to do anything. I didn't have to care, and it was so good and it was fun, to see everybody, and there was no stress from my emotional dysregulation or whatever, that happened in the past. So, I'm expecting Christmas to be the same way.
When you did eat the 2 slices of pizza, because you mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
Okay, obviously there was possibly a little bit of weight, but was there any mental health issues that showed up from doing that?
No. If I had done that in March or April even or May, probably that would have happened. But I'm pretty solid now, and because I watch every thing that I do, and I try to keep my schedule. I try to walk. I try to get sun. I try to get sleep, and I try to keep stress down. Because of all of those efforts, every month I've been a little bit stronger and a little bit more resilient. So my numbers might, instead of being 2.0 or 2.5 for the ketones, it'll be 1.5 or even down to 1, if I ate 4 pieces, say. But the next day, it's gone. I'm back up. I'm back 1.5 or 2.0, whatever. I can work those numbers well, and I have not rebounded. Except for the Gatorade incident, I have not rebounded.
And then, of course, we also have that it didn't cause you to chase either, like the
Nope.
next day.
No, but I'm pretty different with that kind of thing. Once I make a decision, I'm going to eat this way or I'm not going to eat this way, I just do it. I didn't have to. Some people got to work into it and they got to, gradually cut until the feeling goes away. I just some kind of idiot where I can just say, I don't do that anymore, and I just don't do it anymore. So I think maybe mentally I'm a little different in that regard.
I also want people to hear that that's your story. There's a lot of us who would have ended up chasing. There's a lot of us where I know myself, my symptoms would have come back immediately, because that has happened to me in the past, where you eat off plan and then you're getting like this attack on your body. But fortunately for you, that didn't happen. So I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah, and I can tell you a little bit of story as someone else told me a story about that, because they asked me, like what's your recovery if you go off the wagon, and I said, except for the Gatorade incident, which this person was familiar with, I don't have the problem. And they said, whoa, because I know people that ate one piece of chocolate, like a little piece, and had a 5-month relapse to get back on track, like complete fall off the diet, back on meds, back in the hospital, and the whole deal. 5 months to recover and back on track. So I guess I'm lucky in that regard, So I do appreciate what you're saying about that.
Yeah, I just like people to have both sides of the coin, because I'm one of those people. I would not be able to, not that I'm going to have a 5 months relapse, but I'm going to have an immediate pain reaction. So it's different for different people, though. So
I might get other symptoms, like I might get a flare up of, like my wrist will hurt more. Like if I play instruments for more than a half hour after I've eaten badly like that, I might get a little bit of wrist pain, things like that. But mood symptoms, no, I haven't gotten those in a while. Only from stress. Stress has definitely put me in bad mood symptoms, but only temporarily, and they go away really fast.
What are the other things that maybe some people might not realize keto can help them heal?
Sure. Well, I mentioned it briefly. The nose polyps I had, like I know people that they go to get an operation, have them removed, and then a year later or a year and a half later, they come back. Those are completely gone. I have no idea why. My vision that started to go, I think, has actually come back. And I haven't had the field test to tell, like my field of vision, but I have a feeling my vision is better than it's ever been. And that's unexpected, because I think I had some of that diabetic retinopathy going on, which I think the lithium actually exacerbated. I can't prove that because nobody will make a professional opinion on it. But it seems like my vision is clearer, my brain's clearer, my arthritis in my wrist is gone, my back pain I had for probably 10 years is gone. I lost 60 pounds, which was not a goal. I didn't look heavy, but I'm a slight build on my height, and now I'm back where I was when I fit my clothes that I wore when I was 20. Never thought I would ever fit into those clothes again, and I can wear them now. It's unbelievable. Those are the major ones. I'm not sure if I had mentioned anything. And memory is still a problem for me. I do have a recall issue. I don't make short-term memories as well as I probably used to, or I definitely don't. So sometimes I still have trouble with words. A year ago, I would not be able to complete a sentence without asking for help for nouns. Like I'd lose 1 or 2 nouns per sentence, every sentence. Now I do it. You can judge for yourself, but I think I'm doing okay. You know what I mean? I'm not. My recall is not too bad. So things are improving to the point where I started taking a keto advisor coach class at Nutritional Network, Professor Tim Noakes' organization, and I did it no problem. I wouldn't have. So ADHD. That's right. So ADHD symptoms have gone not completely away, but they are manageable without medication now. And that is a surprise because no one talks much about that, but it really helped. And I would say I'm on the spectrum too, even though I'm not diagnosed. I pretty much get that nod from all of my doctors that I could be evaluated, and I would probably come up on the spectrum. So I get emotional like rejection sensitivity disorder and those kinds of things, they're all getting better. And the anxiety is almost gone, like completely. So I don't know. That's a pretty huge list as far as I'm concerned.
I'm actually wondering also about like you've had such amazing success with using real food to solve these health issues. You're now looking to become a keto coach. So let's say someone is really curious about, okay, maybe it's not mental health, but maybe there's something else that they're struggling with. Like, what would you tell them? Like, how would you help them to understand that this is a healthy thing to do, regardless of what the reason is for wanting to do it?
The backlash seems to be either from whether it's from practitioners or people, that you're only supposed to do it till you're healed, and then how long before I can go back to the way I was? The biggest advice comes down to where in 2 weeks after doing this, 2 weeks, not 3 months, not a year, you are going to lose your grip. I mean, the food is going to lose its grip on you. The having to eat every 2 hours or having to eat certain foods that you have emotional connection to. Like I can't go without my pizza or my fried rice or you know what I mean? Fried rice for me was a ritual. It wasn't food. It was something I looked forward to, and I used it for not just comfort, but it was like an exodus, an event, to have Chinese food or something like that. What they don't realize is that's the food causing the inflammation in you that then makes you want to have that inflammation again. And that sounds weird, but it only takes 2 weeks for that to lose its grip on you. So give it a try. Don't think of it as, I can never blah, blah, blah again, because you're going to feel so differently in 2 or 3 weeks about food once you're not eating the stuff that's making you want it to eat it again. Because the way I explain it is, if you're doing something in your body and you're doing something to your body, like eating a certain way or drinking a certain thing like alcohol or substances or whatever, your body wants you to keep that going. It doesn't matter whether it's good for you or bad for you. Your body likes to be steady. And it doesn't matter whether that's healthy or not. It wants what it knows. So, and that's through hormone signaling and all that. But that doesn't matter why. If you do that little thing, like improve your sleep or go outside, like my doctors had said, you're going in the right direction. And you will be amazed at how much better you feel and how much the food will not have a grip on you anymore. You will not have those cravings, and you'll think of food differently. And now, for me, this is forever. Some people are like, well, in 3 years, can I go back, to eating normal? Well, maybe a little bit. Like I've said, I can cheat a little bit, and it doesn't make me sick now. But it took me a long time to get there, and I'm radical. Like I had fat bombs at night. If I knew I needed my ketone number to be higher, I would put butter and coconut and MCT oil and some herbal tea because I knew I wanted those numbers higher. And I push it. And I did that for a good 6 months. I was very, very, and I think that helped. And then I kept it going. I kept the stress get down. So don't knock it until you try it. And it's so short of a time for you to feel the benefits. What do you have to lose? Really? Besides the thing that you're coming there for. That's the thing you have to lose. Give it a shot. You might feel completely differently about food and about your lifestyle and how you can impact your health for yourself. And I really think anybody that has any kind of a thing they want to fix, give it a shot. What do you get to lose? How's 2 weeks of eating a different way? What is that? Nothing.
So now I know the next question is going to be, after you say that, because that sounded really good, but then what do I eat? What does it look like? Like, how do you do this? So can you just a little bit, what's the day in your life look like?
I typically don't eat until, lately it's been about noon, but it was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon before I was even hungry, even a little bit, or even the first thought of, oh, I probably should eat. That didn't come till like 1 or 2 o'clock. And just to cut to the last end of the day, the last time I would eat would be like 8 or 9. So I would have something pretty non-sweet when I first start to eat. So I would like bacon or eggs. because I find that that's a better way to start eating, as opposed to if I had, I'll make a cheesecake once in a while that's keto friendly, but it has some carbs from the cream cheese. I'll have that a little bit later and have a much smaller amount of that food. And I find that works better. I'll clear it if I do it in that order. But I eat probably 1.5, maybe 2 meals a day, pretty much every day. But in the morning, I'm out. I'm getting sun, like 10 or 11. They want you to, anybody without bipolar, you want to get the sun when you wake up. You want to go out and get the signal that the day is starting and all that. And then by the time night comes, you'll have the signal to make your melatonin. For bipolar, they want you to do a little bit later in the morning for some reason, and I'm not sure what it is. Dr. Tracy Marks on YouTube, if you've seen her, she says that, for bipolar, do it closer to noon. So I've been following that, and that's been working for me. And I will try to get walks in a few times a week. Where I live now and I don't drive, I'll walk to the supermarket, I'll walk to the bank, I'll walk to do errands, I'll walk to do laundry now. The washer's busted, but things like that. I try to plan those things so that they're all together. And I have my good work schedule where I fortunately don't work too much, because when you work at home, you tend to actually work more. Because it's like you have the responsibility, you got to get it done, and you're not driving, so you have all this extra time. So I've got that all worked out. I got my schedule, worked in. So I know if I have to work at night to work on something, because during the day is not convenient for work, I plan it in, and I've got another nice rhythm going.
So the first meal, not sweet. Second thing, meal is around what time? Or is that the only meal?
5 or 6, I'll eat a little bit more. So if I do eat in the early afternoon, it'll be eggs and bacon maybe, or just bacon, or just eggs. And then dinner, I'll have like a real meal. So if I had made pizza and I have leftover pizza, I'll eat that, because that's a big, heavy meal. Or I'll have maybe a steak, something like that, a little bit bigger. Or sometimes chicken, sometimes fish.
Are we having vegetables or not really?
I was for a while, and I actually don't like vegetables, and I never have. So it's pretty easy for me to not want to have them. So I'll have broccoli or asparagus, and I do like avocado now, which I never used to. So I'll add those in a few times a week, maybe, if that. But, like this week, I haven't had any, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't seem to.
Okay, so it sounds like your carbohydrates, if you have them, are coming from desserts or things like that.
From like the cream cheese, or heavy cream. They'll if I do have carbs, it'll be from there. Yeah. Or when I make the pizza, sometimes I'll use like the 3 grams per can, or it's per serving, the small little can of tomato paste, and I'll spread that over several meals. So I might get 4 or 5 meals out of a pizza. So I'm probably getting 3 grams of carbs from the tomato maybe per meal, if that, and then some from the cream cheese maybe, and just the cheese topping. But that's not too bad, and that doesn't affect me at all. I don't even see it on the meter, unless I eat that every meal for days. Like if I ate pizza morning, or in the afternoon, and then at night, and then did the same thing the next day, I'll see my number drop a little bit, but it never goes below 1. And when I had the infection, it was going down to 0.5, which was scaring me. And I was waking up in the middle of the night with the infection because it was so bad, sinus infection. That was scaring me, but I'm getting help for that now, and my sleep's back to normal. But I've never dropped out, except for the Gatorade thing. I've never dropped out of ketosis officially, and I think I attribute that to my success, because I never drop out.
It sounds like, yeah, you're keto obviously, but like you lean towards carnivore.
Yep. And I don't really love meat. I like it more now than I used to. I was vegan for 10 years and vegetarian for like 12 or 15 years ago, which I don't know if that's part of my health problems today, but, because I was a junk food vegetarian too. I wasn't like eating a lot of vegetables. I'd eat a lot of bread and pasta and pizza, and things like that, fried rice and things like that. I never ate actually healthy when I was vegan. So I'm not dissing that at all. As a lifestyle, it's more that I didn't do it well, when I did it.
So that tells me now that we're talking about that classic processed food is so convenient that it pulls us in. And then next thing you know, our health is screaming at us and we need to stop and listen to what our body's trying to tell us.
Right. And that was 30 years ago. So like 30 to 20 years ago, I was vegan.
There's lots to learn about what you're saying right now because this is going to help so many people because I think like we don't even think twice, right, about giving our kids pizza and hamburgers and all like kinds chips all the time. We don't think about it, but all that processed food, what is it doing?
You know, I know the point now where I changed my insulin resistance. I know literally the events that made it happen because I did it to myself on purpose. I didn't mean to, but I did. I was so skinny as a kid. I was 137 pounds at 18 years old and 5'10", which is pretty small and not a lot of muscle tone or anything like that. And I thought, I'm going to start lifting and I'm going to gain weight. And I started drinking milkshakes like every day for like multiple times and gained 30 pounds. And I ended up with the love handles all the way around. And my dad's like, oh, you're never going to lose that now. Because he knew, because he went through it too when he was in his 20s. And he was right. And I went from a person that could basically have 6 Coca-Colas a day and not gain any weight to a person now that when I ate, I gained weight. And I know literally that I did that to myself at like 20 years old. And I'm 55 now, and I'm finally like beat it for the first time since then.
Again, valuable information because like you wouldn't think so there's so much information that says that if you want to bulk up, you need those carbohydrates, right?
It's what it was.
And so like what you're doing, people would be like, yeah, what's the problem? But clearly it was a problem.
Yes. And I never did the weightlifting either. So, I ended up just having the extra weight and kept it and gained and added to it until, last year.
I definitely want and thank you for sharing all of this because I really feel like you're saying a lot of things that is going to help everyone just understand that everything we do has a huge impact on how our body's behaving and not just our body, but like how our mind is working. Like you've changed your diet has helped you to be able to think clearly and have stable mood again, which is I'm sure you're ecstatic about.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all scared, like I traveled with my son to New Orleans this week, and I had to fly back. And when you do a time zone shift, that's big, especially going east, it can be a trigger for sleep. And unfortunately, it didn't do that to me because I kept my diet right the whole time. I brought my egg white bread that I made with me. I had 2 loaves of it. So, I ate that and I'd grab like a plain burger and throw the bread away and stick that on my bread. And I ate that for 3 days when we were driving down to New Orleans. And on the flight back, they giving out those snacks, like the almonds and all that other stuff. And I just said, no, thank you. I'm all set. Even I didn't even take the Diet Coke. It's like, no, I want to sleep tonight. Thank you. And it was fine. And I got through it and you wouldn't even know, I flew over a time zone,
Do you fast?
Well, just the intermittent fasting. I haven't done anything over, I'd say 24, 48 hours. I think I went 48 once, about 6 months ago because I was trying to push my numbers. But, I do that smaller eating window, and I think that works enough for me. But I probably could go longer. I don't have the need.
This is amazing. I hope that this conversation helps more people who have mental health challenges to see that food is a huge part of what's happening with us because like it's amazing to me you're not fasting extended fast, you're just eating healthy food which allowed you to get into a shorter eating window. Doesn't even sound like you forced that. And
well, I did. Did
you force that? Okay.
In November last year when my doctor said, why don't you shrink your eating window? And I kind of knew what he was talking about from the videos I've been watching, but it was the first time I had tried it. But what I did was I learned from Dr. Annette Bosworth on YouTube. She talks about fasting a lot. And she said, if you go too fast, you're going to fail. So she said, shrink it an hour, shrink your eating window an hour. And once that feels good for 5 days, shrink it another hour. And that's what I did. But within a month, I had just, and it was effortless. It was absolutely effortless for me. And I know that I'm fortunate, that's not typical.
Well, I slightly disagree. I think it's just that you didn't, like, you had encouragement to do it. So you hadn't thought to do it on your own. I think a lot of people just accidentally do it if they're following Dr. Westman. It was Dr. Westman I think I first heard say, eat when you're hungry. And that whole idea of just eating when you're hungry, that's what helped me to get my window very, like, down to once a day. Just I was just not hungry, right? So I do feel like the thing that I like what you said though is that it wasn't hard. It was just that you thought to do it. It wasn't an automatic.
Yeah, I did, and I did have to fight to do that at first. I'd say the first week or two, I had to force it more than I would have wanted to. Yeah,
Okay. But now that you're doing it,
easy.
easy.
Like I actually have the opposite problem. Oh no, I haven't eaten. Like it's 5 o'clock and I actually haven't eaten. I guess I should. It's more like that now.
That's another thing I wanted to talk about though, is that I feel like this idea that we should is interesting, because why should I eat if I'm not hungry?
I feel it about then right now. If I go 23 hours, I feel it. I get a little bit of I probably need some salt. Like I'll stand up and I won't catch my what do you call, how when you stand, I forget what the word for it is, but when you stand up, your heart rate goes up a little to adjust so you can move. It's a little slow to do that, and I'll get a little bit dizzy, and I have a slight headache. And I thought of two more things that solve, by the way. That
okay.
Up another thing. So I'll grab some salt, like immediately. I'll grab some salt, and then I'll go. I better eat soon, but I don't have to. I can wait another hour, and it'll still be fine. But I thought of those two other things. My skin. I used to always look young. My whole adult life, people thought I was 10, 20 years younger than I was. But by a year ago, I looked older than I probably was, But within months, that skin cleared up, everything went away. And I also suffered from migraines, 10 years ago. And I now know that that's a precursor to a lot of this. That's like a progression of the metabolic problems going on, and it's a symptom that you're headed that way. They've gone away, and they often do for people, but that should have been a sign to doctors. They don't know that. They didn't know that then, but that, hey, this is a progression. So if you're 40 and you're getting migraines, or I had friends that had them in the 20s and 30s, that's a sign. You probably should pay attention to. That your brain is starving for energy. And that was the beginning of the brain part. So those are two big, huge things that I think this also helped. The conversation about food just triggered that.
That's amazing. Like I do think a lot of people talk about headaches and they've gone away since they started eating properly and healthy. So I don't know why we don't have more of this information like widely available. But again, this is not a diet that's pushed by medical. So
yeah, nobody benefits except you.
This was a great conversation. I think one of the things I would like people to know is, like, how could they communicate with you? Where can they find you?
Well, for fun, I do YouTube. So I have 5 vlogs on my channel. They right on the thumbnail, it says vlog 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I did those in April to June, I think. So I'm a little bit hypomanic, I'd say, but and maybe a little bit more angry at the medical system in my commentary at the time. I've since become a little bit less dysregulated emotionally, and I'm a little bit more understanding to why they had to put me through what they put me through, and that they have the choices that they have. And part of it is that your insurance only pays for what your insurance will pay for. So they can suggest all kinds of things to help you, but they only have 10 minutes with you. And because every doctor now is sold out to a company above them, and now they have 5-10 minutes with you, and that's it. And they're like a truck driver. They're like, you missed your point. You're supposed to hit this. So they can't educate you anymore. They can't spend that time with you to say, hey, why don't you relieve your stress? Why don't talk about your life? Figure out what's going on. Like try to help you diagnose your lifestyle. They can't do that anymore. And pills are the easiest thing. It's the thing that people want. They want, give me a pill and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Plus insurance pays for it because it's a fixed cost that they can predict. This other stuff is not. It takes time. It takes education, and that's why I'm becoming a coach, because I want to fill in some of that gap. And because of my mental health perspective, I think I have a unique, slant on it, and I think it could help a different set of people that maybe are doing it for more of the same reasons. So I'm going to be doing a podcast starting in 2024. It's going to start coming out in January. It's with Diane Harwood. She's an author. She wrote a book, Birth of a New Brain, that talks about her bipolar struggles, and she uses keto on the vegan side, where I'm more on the carnivore side. So we're not going to focus on bipolar at all. We're going to focus on the recovery and get some of this information out there. And like, how do we deal with things? It's not an instant switch, but it's dramatic pretty fast. But you still have all the things that you went through in your life before that you have to repair. You still have, stresses, and you have to get through these things, and they get easier and easier to do, but you still have to figure them out. So we kind of want to get that word out there, that story out there. So that's going to be coming, and it's going to be called Our Healing Journey. Metabolic psychiatry will be somehow in the subtitle. And look for that. Is probably the best thing that's related to this. Because my YouTube, I just put music and fun and different things like that. And I hang out with friends online and things like that. So if you're interested in that, go ahead, go there for that. I don't do the other stuff. I do TikTok. And my handle on TikTok and YouTube is Michael B Live, Live.
Now you're putting out information, helping people to manage differently and understand that they can do it better. I love that. Thank you very much, Michael. Wellness Warrior, if you want to start a keto lifestyle or carnivore lifestyle, whichever one you want, there's a video on the screen right here that's going to help you to get started. See you in the next video.